Yes, we had a Pokemon Presents today. I already did a live reaction to all of that stuff, including the bonus news for Legends ZA that came off the official website. You guys can go check out my live reaction to that and all that coverage if you guys want. So that's not what this video is about. This is actually going over at least one brand new, potentially two new things we have learned about Nintendo Switch 2 over the last couple of days. You might recall that there was this user out in China we talked about a while back that spent potentially $40,000 to get their hands early on a black market Nintendo Switch 2 dock, grip, the complete set that we're going to be able to get on launch day. Now, this isn't complete in sort of like a box, you know, it's not coming in the Nintendo Switch 2 official packaging. And no, it does not have the operating system of the Nintendo Switch 2 on it. It just has some test software, but this person is somebody who does this all the time so they can sell the rights to be able to test fit accessories to accessory makers. It actually seems to be what this person does for a living. They get their hand on tech early, and then they let accessory makers use it, obviously paying them for the access to get their accessories ready to go out around launch day. So it probably is a fairly profitable venture if you're going to spend $40,000 on a black market Nintendo Switch 2. Now, look, them doing this doesn't mean that we gain any knowledge. The only knowledge that I thought we could gain is if the user was willing, which they probably aren't because it could potentially damage things, take the thing apart, do a full disassembly, and we can actually learn quite a bit of stuff, especially about the screen. Unfortunately, the user's not going to do that because, again, they need this thing to be complete for the accessory makers. So, okay, then, what else could we get? Well, they gave us CAD renders of it around the time that they got the thing. And look, the CAD renders are cool, except for the fact that Nintendo's already revealed the system, so we've already seen it. But there are some things about the system we haven't seen. Now, we didn't really get a great look at the dock, so, you know, gotta be honest with you guys about that. And look, while we saw the grip, you know, we didn't really see everything. We haven't seen other things too, like the charging cable or whatever. So point is that there are things we could still learn about the system. And while that user in China has now provided CAD models of the dock, the charging cable, and more. So this is going to be really interesting to look at. And we potentially learned two big things about Switch 2 we didn't know before. If you're enjoying this coverage of Switch 2 and you want to stay as up to date on the system as possible and future Nintendo stuff, we'll have games to talk about eventually here. Again, we did live coverage of Legends ZA and Pokemon Champions today. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's first dive into the dock. So this is maybe the most interesting part of the dock images, and it's the bottom of the dock that we've never seen. There appears to be four things here that look like they might be stands that lift it up a little bit, little rubber things, so your dock doesn't move. There also appears to be what looks like perforations, potentially for airflow, or it could just be a general pattern, and it really doesn't mean anything, because obviously this is a CAD model. We don't have the thing in person with real images. We also have this down look here, and both of these actually are going to matter here in a moment. So this is the down look of the dock. You can see the red part is clearly like the guidance for making sure your switch lines up properly with the USB-C. You can also see the rubber stoppers here. But the more important thing to pay attention to are these two indents right here. These two indents on the bottom appear to line up with, well, the air vents that we've seen on Nintendo Switch 2. Now remember, we talked about there being perforations on the bottom. We also talked about these air vent things. Is there anything else we see? Not really. This is the traditional back of the system, so you can see the Ethernet port, the HDMI, and where the power cable goes. And over here, you can see outlines of two USB ports. So, okay, whatever. Why does this matter? Well, observations over at Family Boards are pointing out that, you know, the shipping data seems to indicate that there is a fan in the dock, and maybe the fan isn't located where people thought it was, but instead it's actually located at the bottom of the dock. This observation was made by FWDBWD. So it says, on the original thread, someone questioned whether there was enough space in the dock for the rumored fan that's in the shipping data. The leaker replied with the dimensions of the dock, approximately 20W by 11H by 5D centimeter. These numbers are close to the shell dimensions found in the customs data. therefore probably legitimate. They also said the following, which I found rather vague and is up for interpretation. It's hidden. Welcome to Family Boards. And he says, I can't be certain, but it reads to me that the fan is installed horizontally at the bottom. The part number BSMO405 HPJH9 found in the customs data suggests the fan is 40 millimeters, small enough to fit horizontally. The CAD render also seems to show air ducts at the base, aligning with the console's bottom air intakes. And you can see the arrows there. So this is just really, really interesting because I gotta say, it would probably fit in like this fat area here, but we know that there's going to be a motherboard in there as well for all of the electronics and all the ports. It's kind of interesting thinking about this thing possibly being in the base and actually sucking in air from the bottom and blowing it up. There is not saying that everyone universally believes this is happening. It is pretty well believed there will be a fan, and maybe the fan is housed in the same area as where the motherboard is, and maybe the fan is just to, cool the motherboard. Why would the motherboard need additional cooling? That is a whole different speculation, but still, I do find this interesting. So we're going to throw that out there. We potentially learn about air ventilation and potentially fan location. Now, let's get into the next CAD renders that come up, renders we haven't had of anything before, and that is the grip, which we technically saw the grip in the reveal trailer, so nothing too surprising there. It's not a charge grip. But also, how about this? The actual brick used to power the system. That is something we haven't seen. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, this is having both in one shot. Here's your power brick, here's your grip. There'll be other shots here that are separate. Remember, these are CAD renders, and these look like a US power supply, just based on the prong there. You can see the grip. This grip pretty much matches identically to what Nintendo showed on their thing, but here you go with the two prongs. So the thought process here, when you look at this, is this might be a detachable brick. What do I mean? The cable might not be attached to it, meaning you could use any standard USB-C cable to plug into your system because this will provide the proper wattage. Just would mean Nintendo is using the standard USB-C. USB-C has set standards. Switch didn't use it. It looks like they might be using a detachable one. This doesn't confirm that, but it at least hints at it. And we have some additional information from LIC over on Family Boards as well. And we'll link to all this because all of this was actually discovered over on Family Boards by this Kaisen person who posted it up. I just went to the imager place because, again, it makes the images bigger and easier to see. And it says, wow, a CAD poster sharing something we actually haven't seen or been able to size before, the charger. Based on the grip being 115 millimeters in height, we get that from the shipping data. I'm roughly measuring the size of the charger, and it's actually a little smaller than Switch 1's, and the width is only slightly greater. That's a welcome confirmation, since the closest publicly available charger, the ADP65JW, is thinner but deeper than the Switch 1 charger, which would have been annoying. With everything more or less rounded up to 5 millimeters, the Switch 1 is 35W by 65H by 50D millimeter, for 113.75 millimeter, to the third, or the Switch 2 is 40W by 50H by 50D millimeter, which is 100 millimeter or 100M to the third or whatever, those exact measurements there. So basically, it's kind of smaller than the Switch 1, little brick that you plug in one dimension, a little bit fatter in another, and it does appear to be a detachable one. Let me give you an example. So what I have here are two different wall wart plugs here that have detachable cables. You can see the slots. You just put your own USB-C cable in. This is one that came actually with when they first switched over iPhone to USB to USB-C to Lightning, they actually included this for one generation. So this is not like their fast charging brick, but you can see it's got some heft to it, but it is smaller than a Switch 1 thing. And then this one's more like the size of a Switch 1 one, except, fatter, but skinnier, right? It's skinnier this way, but fatter this way. And it has this thing that folds in and out. We obviously don't know if that does that. And this is actually pretty comparable here because this is a 65 watt wall charger. So you plug it in, you get 65 watts out of this USB-C port to head out to your device. This is reportedly the same wattage as what the Nintendo Switch uses, or I guess maybe it's 45 watts. Either way, the point is you can kind of see the size difference. This is more like a 15 watt. This is a 65. The Switch 2 would be somewhere in between these two for sizes. And look, we think it might have a detachable cable. That's really good for replaceability. One of the things that happens sometimes if a cable gets stretched, that sucks on the current Switch 1 charger because it could just break then. That happened to a friend of the channel and my best friend, Eric Moore. He had to get a new Switch 1 charger because his Switch 1 charging brick, the cable got stretched and it didn't work anymore. In cases like this, you could just take it out and replace it with another USB-C cable you may have on hand. I've got several of them laying around, so it's just very convenient. And it would just be great for the end user if that is what Nintendo decided to do. Anyways, folks, that is basically some new stuff we learned about Nintendo Switch 2 today, potentially. Obviously, we're relying on this China person to actually be providing real renders, even though they seemingly are providing real renders, and they probably aren't lying about paying that much money for a Switch 2. They provided DMs and stuff in the past to kind of prove that they spent that money. They're not providing photos because those photos are saved directly for the actual companies that are paying him for access. But anyways, you guys let me know what you think about this stuff down in the comments below as we continue to piece together the puzzle around Switch 2 before we get to the April 2nd Direct, which, thanks to Paul Gale, network friend of the channel, who's creating all the shorts we're putting up every day, I now know we're 34 days away from the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and things like this will be answered pretty quickly. A fan in the dock, I don't know if Nintendo will point it out, but it might become even more obvious that there's a fan in the dock, and so much more, because like the biggest things we need to see are like the UI, the interactions, the eShop, whatever NSO updates they got, the games obviously being the big thing. So anyways, you guys let me know what you think about this stuff down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Robojans from Nintendo Prime, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video.